Welcome, y'all, to geometry. This is how the semester's going to be. So let's kind of talk about section 1.1. Now, this is a big introduction to a lot of the verbs and words we'll be using. So let's kind of go over a lot of things. Now, in the real world, we have things. We have objects. We have models, shapes, points, lines. Some of those things don't actually exist. For example, in geometry, points, lines, and planes are considered undefined terms because a point is just a moment in space. When you touch a desk, it's a bunch of points put together to form that. But a single point is kind of hard to do. A line, again, is just a certain straight line that goes in a certain way. Now, a line happens when two planes meet. So, for example, if you look at a wall and that has a corner, that corner can be considered a line because two walls intersected to make that one single section that goes up and down or side to side. A plane can be considered like a wall. A plane we can't touch. Here's a plane, but planes aren't only necessarily just that one way. Planes can go in any way. So, for example, in a three-dimensional figure, we can have a plane that can exist. To say you have a wall, so you have a room. Let me get the pencil. You have a wall, another wall, a third wall that goes out. So this wall can be considered a plane. But let's say I take this wall and then there's a section right here in the carpet and I make a wall that goes slanted that way. This right here is considered a plane as well. Now, we may not be able to see that, but that can be considered a plane and all things can exist in that plane. Right? So these are called undefined terms because they're not really something in geometry, we can necessarily manipulate or touch. Now, a point is kind of a little bit more, talk about just one thing. A point is a fixed location in space. So, for example, you are in one position right now. You're in one spot right now in the world. You are a fixed point at the moment. When you move, you become a fixed point somewhere else at a particular moment. Now, electronics are made up of points. Well, if you look at your screens, they're called pixels. Each individual pixel has can be manipulated to control the colors. That's why we get different hues and vibrance, different colors. Now, to kind of make that more specific, for example, an iPhone XS has 458 points per square inch. So for every one little inch on your phone screen, there's that many individual points in there that can be manipulated, changed, and all that. Versus a Samsung S10 that has same 1 square inch has even more points. So that's how sometimes those Samsungs the color looks a lot, pops out a lot more. Doesn't necessarily make it any better or any worse, but it just has more points. Comparatively to TVs. Now, with 2 points are the same distance away from 1 point, they're the same distance away. That's called equal distance. These 2 points, this one and this one, are equal distance from this third point. This is the third point. So point A and point B are equal distance to point 3. Right? So that's points. Points is just a section, a specific place in space and time and a moment. Now, lines is made up of a bunch of points. So if you put enough points together in a row, it makes a line. So you need at least, like it says right here, you need at least 2 points to create a line. So if I have 1 point, there's no line. But I have 2 points and I connect them. Oops, a horrible line. Let's fix that. I have 2 points. Then I created a line that goes through those 2 points right there. You put a little arrow at the end. Now, lines have no thickness and they extend in opposite directions infinitely. We put these arrows because we're not necessarily able to draw infinitely this way or infinitely that way. But by putting arrows, say, hey, this keeps going that way and this keeps going the opposite way, this way over here. All right? So they can be considered, hey, say this is point A, point B. Capital A, capital B. But we can refer to this line as, hey, line B, just a single letter B. Or you can refer to it as the points it contains. So, for example, here has point A and B. So we can say this is line AB. with the arrow symbol above, with the line symbol above, like that. So this has two possible names. We call it line B, line C, whatever you want to call it. Line B I'm using, or we can call it line AB. That tells us that those 2 points exist in that line, and that line has to go through those 2 points. Or we can just call it line B, which also contains point A and point B, big A, big B. So a single point is just one little dot, a fixed point in space. A line has to have at least 2 points to create one line. A plane has to have exactly 3 points to create, not in the same line, to create a point. So it's a flat surface that extends infinitely. Now, we have a hard time seeing that infiniteness of that. So that's why we just call it like a rectangle or square or even a triangle can be considered a plane. It's a flat surface. But it actually keeps going, everly expanding infinitely. But we give it boundaries so our mind can see it. All right, so planes can be labeled with capital letters. So we can call this plane A, capital A, plane A right there. You usually use a cursive letter. So use like a big A, big A. And they put it in the corners. So as you do the homework, you see that they'll put these letters in the corners talking about this whole plane. Okay, they can be vertical, they can be horizontal, they can be diagonal. It doesn't matter. As long as it has 3 points that exist in there, it's considered a plane. Now, two horizontal planes cannot exist. Two horizontal planes cannot exist. Oh, cannot, do not intersect. So, for example, your ceiling and your floor do not intersect. If they intersect, that means your roof caved into your floor. So they do not intersect. But two vertical ones can. So, for example, your two walls. If you have a wall goes this way, and then another one that breaks off goes the other way, you have two walls that intersect. That's perfectly fine. Now, there's through every one plane, there exists at least 3 points, and they cannot be in a row. So you have a point there, there, and there. If we had these all in a row, then we have a line. That just happens that we talked about 3 points. The reason they can't be, by having them not all in a row, when we intersect these, we form this space that exists in between these. This would be our plane of these 3 points right here. So that's very important that they can be intersecting or in a line. So let's talk about space in general. Space is all possible points that can exist in this one area. So in your room or in the classroom, this is a space. All things that can exist in this room. When you go onto the hall, that's another thing. And you can think of this as even bigger and bigger and bigger. In your classroom, that's one space. In this school, it's another space. In this town, in this state, in this country, in this hemisphere, in this earth. That's all possible points that can exist in one area. And we can go in this solar system, in this universe. Now, collinear points are all points in a line. So, for example, if I have point A, B, and C right here, these are all collinear points, okay? Because they all exist on this one line right here. Let's say we have 3 points over here, D, E, F, and G, okay? All these points are coplanar as they exist, but these 3 points and A are not coplanar, so they can exist in now D and F with A could, but as it is right now, we're going to say is not. Okay. Now intersections happen is when points meet, lines and endpoints. So when two lines intersect, so for example, you call this line right here line A, and this line right here B, line B, or little b right there. This point where they intersect, where line A and line B intersect, we'll call this point X. This is the intersection of those two lines. Okay, this line went down, this one went to the side, they all intersected right there. But not only do lines intersect, planes intersect. When planes intersect, you get lines. So when plane A, big A, and plane B right here intersected, they form this line right here. Kind of like when walls touch, the side and the floor touch, they form a straight line. So to reiterate that, uh, lines are made up of 2 points. 2 points. Planes, 2 points. 3 points. Okay, you need that many in there. Intersections, two lines intersect equal 1 point of intersection. Intersection. Section. Two planes intersect, two planes equal one line of intersection. So what is the intersection of things is the common point. So for example, this point X is the common point between line A and line B. This line right here, we'll say X and we'll say this point Y. Line XY right here is the common line between plane A and plane B. Okay. Last things we're going to talk about right here. So let's kind of work this out. So it's telling us that line XY intersects plane M at point O. So this right here, right there, that's point O. This is plane M, this whole one. And this line that goes through it, as you can see, that's what these dotted line means. It's like you're seeing through that plane. It's going through it. That's line XY. So they're saying, hey, XY intersects. So it touches this plane at that 1 point and that 1 point only. So the question is, true or false? TOR, are they collinear? Is TOR in the same line? No. See, these two are on the same line, T and O, R and O on the same line, but those three together are not the same line, so they're not collinear. Not collinear. But what are they? What are those 3 points together like that called? Because they exist on this one surface, plane M, they are coplanar though. So TOR are coplanar, meaning they exist on the same surface. Now it's R, T, S, and X right here. So point R, point T, point S, and point X. Are they coplanar? No. R, T, and S are, but X is hovering above it, so they're not coplanar. No, they're not coplanar. So right here, we're giving you points A, B, C, D, E, F. It's what we call a triangular prism. It tells you name 2 planes that are determined by 4 points. So what 4 points exist on one plane? Well, let's start with A. So we could say plane A. And then what other planes? We could go 2 different ways. Let's go with this front one. This front one right here. This front rectangle. It'll be plane A, C, F, D. A, C, F, D. It's very important when you're naming these planes, you go in a circular pattern. You could have gone backwards too. You could do plane A, D, F, C. But you cannot go plane A, C, D, F. You're cutting across the plane. That's not a proper way to do this. So that's one plane. Let's do another plane. Let's use the letter B. Plane B. So B what? So that's a point right here. And the reason we can't just say plane B is because B is intersected by 3 different lines. That means that one point exists on this surface over here, this surface over here, and this top surface over here. That's what we have to use 4 letters. So how about we talked about this back plane back here, the one on the back side down here. So we start with B. I'll be plane B. Then you can go C, F, E. B, C, F, E, B, C, F, E. All right. Now, what planes intersect B, E? So this back one right here, what 2 planes intersect this whole line? Well, it'll be this one and this one. It'll be plane A, B, E, and D, and plane B, C, F, and E. Now, what's important when talking about intersection, what planes contain these 2, is that these 2 letters have to exist in that plane as well. Okay. The last thing, name 2 planes that do not intersect. Which one do you think is not? What did we talk about? Which type of planes do not intersect? Horizontal, and there's only two. This triangle up here, plane A, B, and C, and this triangle down here, plane D, E, and F. Let's change the color. So A, B, C, that plane cannot intersect this one down here, D, E, F. All right. So it's a lot that we went through, so you might watch this again, but these are all terms that we will use many times. Collinear, coplanar specifically, lines, planes, points, even more. We'll talk about space every once in a while, but those specific ones, collinear, coplanar, intersection, points, lines, and planes. Those are very important. Have a great day. Bye.